In this video, I'll show you how to propagate clumping plants and grasses by division, as you can see here, and we'll also have a quick look at whether it's best to sow your cuttings in pots or whether it's best to direct sow them into the ground. I recently found these liriopes in a bucket about to be tossed at my parents' place, so I decided that I'd take them home and separate them by division and show you how it's done. Now these liriopes are amazing border plants because they have a dense mat of roots, which means their roots can stop the infiltration of things like grasses like couch into your garden beds. Now it's important to understand with these liriopes and other grasses and clumping plants is that the growth from these plants, new growth on these plants, will come from the base. So what we're going to do is we're going to clip the top and neaten up the roots at the bottom, but as long as we have the base, we'll be able to produce new shoots and roots from each cutting. So separating grasses and clumping plants is done by division. Now you can use secateurs, you could use a shovel, or you could use your bare hands to do this process. Here I'm using a set of snips to separate the root ball out. The beauty of snips is you reduce the surface area for infection when you're snipping a clean cut rather than tearing the grass clump apart. To be honest though, these are quite hardy plants and the easiest option here is just to separate them out by hand, and then I'll use the snips later on to prune the roots and the tips before I pot them up. Now that my cuttings are separated up, I'm going to trim some of the leaves off the top of the cuttings. Now the purpose of this is to reduce water loss through the leaves in each cutting. The less leaves there are, the less water stress we're placing on the plant. Now as these cuttings take off, what we'll find is these little tiny leaves on top will die back and brown off, and new shoots will emerge from the base of the cutting. So don't worry if your leaves start to brown off within a week or two of planting out. So the next step here is to plant up our cuttings. So I'm going to dibble a little hole, place the root ball in, move the soil back in firmly around the base of the plant so that the roots in here can uptake nutrients through the moisture in the soil. Now the key part there is the moisture in the soil. When your soil is dry, the plants are unable to take up nutrients and will wilt and die off as a result. Now I did plant about 10 to 15 of these just around the corner on the side of my house in an area that gets full sun in the heat of summer, gets no sun in winter, and I wanted to see if these liriopes would survive there. Now there are existing liriopes in this region, but they are well established plants in comparison to these tiny little grass cuttings or slips. So by no means is this a fair experiment, and this will just show you just how hardy these plants actually are. As you can see from this footage, I planted 13 cuttings or slips in this particular spot. I completely forgot about them. They bore the full brunt of summer, and mixed with two dogs, they actually really struggled in this region. But don't let that discourage you from directly sowing plant cuttings into the ground. I'll do a little video follow up on that some stage later. So we've got a 100% survival rate about a month and a half on from where we started. You can see new shoots on top of each of these cuttings except for one which is yet to shoot, but the leaves on the base are still green, so it's producing energy, sending it to the base of the plant. So I have no doubt that this guy's going to shoot shortly. Hope you found the video helpful. If you have any questions, pop them down in the comments. I'll see if I can help.